Morning, guys. How does it feel to have to be at school 2 days in a row? That's just to the kids that are at school since they haven't had 2 days of school in 3 weeks or since hybrid started. But the aim today is that students will be able to describe the unique geography of Japan and its influence on early Japanese history. So our agenda is pretty much the same. We have a do now today, some notes, and then guided practice, and then independent practice you'll have. You'll need your basic things, your Chromebook, slides, and a quiet space. And if you're in the building, that should be easy for you. And then today is National Dog Biscuit Day. So if you have a dog, make sure you give them a treat today. So for the do now, you have a timeline of the life of Abraham Lincoln. So if you could just pause the video and complete the 5 questions that go with this timeline for practice. All right, so if we look at our timeline, number 1, which happened earlier, Lincoln gets married or Lincoln becomes president. If we look at our timeline, we can look for the keyword married, or we can look for the keyword president. And I see here president in 1860, but I see here married in 1842. So he got married first. How many years after Lincoln was president did he free the slaves? So we say, looking here, Lincoln's elected 16th president of 1860. He issues the Emancipation Proclamation, freeing all slaves. So that is 3 years. 3, what year was Lincoln elected president? We see 1860. 4, what year did Lincoln work for hire? That is 1824. And then 5, what is the span of the timeline? Remember, your span is how many years are on the timeline in total. And it goes from 1800 to 1900, so that's going to be 100 years. Let's go ahead and fix that if you need to. All right, so we have 5 vocab words today. The first one is really important because it's what Japan is. And the first word is archipelago. And basically what that means as far as landforms is it's just a chain of islands. Hawaii's an archipelago too. There's just like islands. Mainland, which is the area of land that is part of the continent. So if you can see, I know it's small, but if you look here, we have Asia here, and then Japan is over here. So the actual mainland would be over here. Ring of Fire is the region of volcanoes and earthquakes that circle the Pacific Ocean. We'll get into that a little bit more in a second. Clan is a group of people with a common ancestor. So easiest way to think about that is like, biological family. And then Kami is just a holy being that represents a spirit in nature. Go ahead and pause and get those down. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to drag and drop these are the islands of Japan. So we're going to drag and drop and put them where they're supposed to go. Okay. All right, so I'm going to. So the first major island is Kyushu. I'm going to drag that. Kyushu is right here. Then we have Hokkaido. Hokkaido is the island that's furthest north. Honshu is the biggest island of all of them. It's right here. So this whole thing. And then Shikoku is this little one. Let me move Kyushu right a little bit down. Well, Shikoku is right there. What's really interesting too about Japan is if you go on like Netflix or whatever and you look up like Planet Earth islands of like Japan or something, or you look up Planet Earth Japan. So up here in the north, like Hokkaido, you're gonna see a lot of snow and you're gonna see a lot of like snow monkeys. But as you come down towards Shikoku and Kyushu, it gets very tropical. Um, so you get a whole wide range of climates when you're working with Japan. Honshu is the most temperate. Okay. This is just another more detailed map for you. But there are like a lot of little islands. See, this is Kyushu, which is down here, but there's even more little islands that are below that. And so you can see here, if you look, Tokyo is over here. Now, if you're a World War II person, what ended the war, part of what ended the war in the Pacific Front was the bombing of Japan with a nuclear bomb, and that was in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So that's where those nuclear bombs were dropped, if you are interested in that. And then we have Mount Fuji, which is the active volcano that is on Japan. So this is that ring of fire I was telling you about. And if you look at the key, um, anything that looks like a bomb is where there's active volcanoes. So the ring of fire, it looks like this because, or it happens because you have two um, plates that are rubbing against each other. So the perforated line would be basically the plate boundaries. So you have a plate here and a plate here, and they rub together. Okay, so that's why we see, if you look, you can see that on the West Coast. That's why we see a lot of earthquakes in California. That's why we've been seeing earthquakes in Mexico. But all the little explosions are active volcanoes. So you can see that. You can see the ones in here. That's Hawaii. Oops. And then we have Japan, which is another map. I'd like you to answer questions 1 and 2. Why do most people in Japan live near the ocean? And then which island is the largest? So you're going to want to use the key and your notes, but you really need to use the key for the first part, the first question. So go ahead and pause. All right, so number 1, most people live near the ocean because if you look at the elevation, the lighter the color, the higher the elevation. So we see that most of this is mountains. So most people live by the ocean because the land is covered mostly by mountains. And then our largest island is Honshu, which we went over in our notes as well. All right, so we are going to read guided practice and then answer our questions. Japan is an archipelago or a chain of islands. To Japan's west is the continent of Asia. To the east lies the broad Pacific Ocean. In ancient times, the Japanese believed that theirs was the first land to see the sun rise in the morning. They called their country Nippon, which means land of the rising sun. In Japanese tradition, the sun goddess was the country's special protector. And if you look at Japan historically, and even if you look at their flag, um, if you look at it, you can see kind of like you get like the kind of like sun concept from their flag. And then if you really want a good World War II movie, there's Empire of the Sun. That's what they called Japan during World War I and World War II, the Empire of the Sun, because they considered themselves land of the rising sun. So that's a really good movie. Land and climate, Japan is made up of 4 large islands and thousands of smaller ones. Its total land area is about the size of the state of California. The archipelago is very long from north to south. Honshu, the main island, is much larger than the others. Japan has many different climates. Heavy snows blanket the northernmost island of Hokkaido in the winter, and the southern island of Kyushu is almost tropical. A ridge of volcanic mountains runs the length of the island chain. Mount Fuji is the highest peak. It rises more than 12,000 feet above sea level. Because of Mount Fuji's beauty, it has always been an important symbol for the Japanese people. So we have two questions. Which continent lies west of Japan and what is an archipelago? So go ahead and pause the video and answer those questions and we'll come back and go over the answers. All right, so which continent lies west of Japan? The continent that lies west is Asia. What is archipelago? An archipelago is a chain of islands. So this you could use your map or you can see it in the text right here in the second sentence. To Japan's west is the continent of Asia. Then what is an archipelago? This you could get from the notes or again, it's in the first sentence of the entire text. So this is where, well, you can't see it on my screen, but you can see it on yours. You're going to go ahead and start independent practice. It's basically having to do with volcanoes and the mountains. And then you're going to move on to the early history. So the Jomon people and the Yayoi. Then we're going to see a clan kind of come out, the Yamatos. And then we'll move on tomorrow to Prince Shikoku. And then we have technology, so farming and more kami stuff. But when you're done, make sure you submit your slides, you read the checklist. So again, look at your responses. Do they restate? Do they begin with a capital letter? Do they end with a period? If they do not, you will lose points. So you want to make sure that you're doing that and also clicking the link for the attendance form if you have not already filled it out today. But tomorrow we will continue to talk about the early history of Japan, and then we will move on Wednesday. Or on Thursday, my fault. Sorry. I will see you all tomorrow. Bye.